Alright, Logic fans, welcome to video 4.7c, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. We're introducing the four categorical sentences, and after we've introduced them, we can talk about the relationships between them, and that's going to be made manifest by being able to switch between the quantifiers and to state each categorical sentence in terms of both quantifiers. So let's continue on and introduce the E sentence. The E sentence is typically symbolized this way, okay? And like this, and this typically means something like so as you know from our previous work, this just says pick anything you like out of our bag. Whatever you pick will satisfy this description. So informally we say things like no spider is a mammal, okay? And so, as an example, pick anything you like out of your bag. If you picked a spider, right, anything you pick out of the bag satisfies this description. If it's a spider, then it's not a mammal. So, no spider is a mammal, okay? And that's basically how that one works. So, notice that each of these categorical, sentences is categorizing in a certain way. So, with the A statement, we saw that, all koalas are cute. Well, that classifies all the koalas underneath the banner of cuteness, right? So you're classifying them. And here you're classifying all the spiders a certain way. You're saying none of the spiders are mammals. If you're a spider, you're not a mammal. No spider is a mammal, okay? And as you're undoubtedly familiar with now, too, we can express the categorical E statement not just in terms of the universal quantifier, but in terms of the existential quantifier as well. So I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and figure out how the E statement is made in terms of the existential quantifier. Pause now. Okay, so there's different ways you could do it, right? Once again, imagine if it had like the two negations here. We're going to take this negation, we're going to move it to the inside and switch the quantifier. So moving this negation to the inside, right? We're going to put it here, and we're going to have this just like this, right? And then, of course, we're going to have our existential quantifier, have switched to our existential quantifier, and ultimately it ends up looking just like that, okay? And that's a perfectly fine construction, but once again, we're going to sort of clean it up a little bit by imagining using impla on the conditional right here. So using impla, we're going to switch this to an or, and we're going to have the negation here like this. Then, of course, we can apply De Morgan's, right? When we apply De Morgan's, taking this guy and moving it in, we're going to switch this to an and each of these is going to end up with a negation on it, just like this, okay? So we took that negation right there, and we moved it inside using De Morgan's, okay? And then, of course, we can clean that up fairly easily by using double negation here and double negation here. And so this would be one way of expressing the categorical E sentence in terms of the existential quantifier, okay? All right, let's move on to I and to O. So starting with I, we're going to have the categorical I sentence, and it is typically stated in this form, okay? So it's typically stated with the existential, okay? And what this roughly says is that some F are G's, or you could think of it as saying like, some dogs have fleas, okay, as an example, all right? So there's at least one thing in your bag that satisfies this description, right? It's a dog and it's got fleas. So at least one dog has fleas, some dogs have fleas, okay? So this is, again, categorizing things a certain way, right? You're saying at least one thing that's like this is also like this, okay? So it's a categorical statement. It's something we use to classify or categorize. And unsurprisingly, right, we can state this categorical I sentence in terms of the universal quantifier. So pause now and give yourself a second to see if you can figure out what the categorical I statement looks like in terms of the universal quantifier. All right, once again, okay, you can imagine it like this. We're going to take this guy and we're going to move him inside. All right, so he's going to go to the inside, and we're going to put it like that. And of course, we're going to switch quantifiers when we do that. And then this is a perfectly fine construction, but we're going to go ahead and do our do a little bit of work here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to use De Morgan's, and we're going to bring this guy inside. So that would be like this. We will go over how to use De Morgan's and all those rules later in chapter 6. I'm just sort of helping ourselves to them a little bit so that you can see the final results. But it's kind of interesting. What you can do now is you can go ahead and use impla to change this disjunction into an if-then. And when you do that, you're going to get this construction right here. So that was impla. So this is another way, yet another way of writing the categorical I statement, and it looks just like that. And now, undoubtedly, you probably are noticing a relationship here between E and I. I'll explain it in a minute, but let's just press on with our overarching theme, introducing all of these, and let's look at the categorical O statement, okay? Now, the categorical O statement, like the categorical I statement, is also often stated in terms of the existential quantifier. So it is typically stated this way. There exists at least one thing that's F, and it lacks the property G. So reach in your bag. Somewhere in there, you're going to find something satisfying this description. It's an F, and it's not a G, okay? And so a sentence in terms of English this way might be like, some dog lacks fleas or does not have fleas, okay? Let's put it up here so you can see it. Like this, some dog lacks fleas. There's exists an X such that X is a dog and it does not have fleas. It's not the case that it has fleas. Okay, so again, you're classifying, right? Something that's this way is not that way. All right, so and finally, we can state this in terms of the universal quantifier. Go ahead and try to work it out now what it is in terms of the universal quantifier, but you can also help yourself to peeking at A. Okay, if you peek at A, it might give you a hint as to what it looks like in terms of the universal quantifier. Okay, so in terms of the universal quantifier, I'll just walk you through our procedure, right? The relationships between the quantifiers. Imagine, the sentence like this, just double negated. Okay, it's the same sentence ideally. And then you've got this guy here. We're going to take him and we're going to put him on the inside, right? So he's going to go in here, and we're going to happily switch our quantifiers, right? And so they're going to end up looking like this. Okay, so we've moved him to the inside. All right, fair enough. Now let's go ahead and De Morgan's this. Well, if we bring this guy in, we're going to get not fx here. This is going to switch to or, and we're going to get gx there. And then of course we can double negate that, right? And of course we can now, looking at this construction, use impla if we want, and get this construction right here. Okay, so that's pretty fast. You're not supposed to be able to do all those transformations just yet, but it should make some intuitive sense. The idea is that these are all logically equivalent. So this is another perfectly fine way of expressing the categorical O sentence, all right? And the beauty of being able to express each of these in terms of the opposing quantifier is that it makes certain relationships on, notice I've arranged this in a square, the square of opposition, right? It makes certain relationships very manifest. For example, let's look at the A and the O. If you look at it in terms of the universal quantifier, look at what you have. Okay? The O statement is the negation of the A statement, right? And it doesn't matter which one you look at it in terms of. If I look at the A in terms of the existential quantifier and the O in terms of it, I notice that they're the, that the A statement is the negation of the O statement. All right, and so, A and O statements are basically of the form P and not P, right? And so they contradict one another. And so if an A statement is true, the corresponding O statement is false. And if an O statement is true, the corresponding A statement is false because it's the negation of it. Okay, so they can't both be true. All right, if one's true, the other's false, and if one's false, the other's true. Okay, the exact same relationship is made manifest on the square of opposition between E and I. Notice that, an I statement like this in terms of the existential reveals that, E is just the negation of that. Okay, so again, the square of opposition, the I and the O's are kind of opposed to one another. Okay, so these are opposed and these are opposed. And notice, of course, you can look at it in terms of the universal quantifier as well. Okay, so that's kind of a really, really nice thing. Let me give you an example of what you're looking at in ordinary English. So let's look at a categorical A statement in ordinary English. So all F's are G's. So let's go ahead and say all whales are mammals. Okay, notice that's a true statement. My question for you is, so this is being a whale and this is being a mammal. Okay, what would the corresponding O statement look like? All right, so where this is a whale and this is a mammal. Okay, the corresponding O statement would be at least one thing is a whale, right? At least one thing is a whale and not a mammal. All right, well, those contradict each other, right? If this were true, then this would have to be false. And if this is true, which it is, this is going to be false, which it is, okay? So that's making manifest the relationship between them, okay? Let's go ahead and try it with I and with E as well. So we'll do E and we'll do I. And let me give you a categorical E statement. We'll use the one we used before. No spider is a mammal. All right, what would the corresponding I sentence look like where f of x is a spider and g of x is a mammal? Pause now. Okay, it would say at least one thing right? At least one thing is a spider and, right, is a mammal. Okay, and so it's kind of interesting, all right? So these, of course, contradict one another, and that's made manifest because the logical form reveals that they're, of the form P and not P. Okay, so if nothing like this is like this, if no spider is a mammal, it cannot be the case that at least one thing is both a spider and a mammal, right? These would have to contradict one another. Okay, it's kind of interesting. I get a lot of questions about the square of opposition sometime, but I want to leave us plenty of time to cover it, so we'll spill into video D for that material. See you on 4.7D.